All right, welcome to the practice quiz for lessons 16 through 19 of Unit 3, Algebra 2. All right, to begin here, we're going to do the opposite to each side like you always do when you solve an equation. So we're just going to take the square root of each side. When you do that, you don't want to forget the fact that a negative can be squared to make 25. So we say plus or minus 5. So if 5 is squared, you get 25. If negative 5 is squared, negative 5 times negative 5. The next one, we're going to take the square root again. And this time, we write down x equals plus or minus. Then we learned in this unit that the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. So we think about this 36 here with the negative 36, as the square root of negative 1 and the square root of 36. So that part is I, and then the square root of 36, it's a perfect square. So it's 6I. So what this means is there's two solutions to this. It could be 6I, or it could be negative 6I. And the fast way of writing that is with the plus minus symbol. So x is equal to plus or minus the square root, or plus or minus 6i. And then this is just plus or minus 5. The next one's going to work out similar to the first two, but we're going to do a little bit more algebra simplification. So we're going to add 9 to each side, just like we're solving a regular algebra equation. And we get 3x squared. That cancels out, and then equals 147. Then we divide each side by 3. That's what you do to one side. You got to do the other. You get x squared is equal to 49. So now this is just like the first one, 25, 49. It's a perfect square. There's no square roots of negatives. So I just get positive answers here, or not positive, but real answers. So x is equal to plus or minus 7. No I business, just plus or minus 7. All right, now we're going to solve by factoring. Here we do our two sets of parentheses. And this is kind of review from the second quarter of the year. But I want to throw it in here with solving the quadratics. And then plus 3 and plus 10. Now we want to check to make sure that this does work. And the way that I've teased this out before is with the Officer Burnett Bell half donut trick. So that's 3x. And then this times this. At least it looks like a half a donut. 10x, 3x and 10x make 13x in the middle. So that's how it factors. Then we do what's called zero product property. We set each factor equal to 0. So we literally make a t, and we set each factor equal to 0. So x plus 3 is equal to 0, and then x plus 10 is equal to 0. And the reason why this works is because if this side here was 0, then the whole thing would be 0. And if this side over here was 0, then the whole thing would be 0, because 0 times anything is 0. So what the zero product property says is a times b equals 0. Well, we know that a could equal 0, or the second part, b, could equal 0. So that's what you do. You set each factor equal to 0. So I subtract the 3 over, and I get x is negative 3. That's one solution. And then x is negative 10. That's the second solution. So those make the sentence true, negative 3 or 10. But from graphing purposes, we know that a parabola is that U shape, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're just figuring out that it crosses the x-axis. When does it equal 0? It crosses the x-axis at negative 3 and 10. So the parabola looks something like this. So that's what we're finding, is where is the parabola 0? What makes this true? And sometimes parabolas aren't 0 because the parabola misses the x-axis. So then that's when we get the imaginary solutions. All right, so here we go. I'll still do blue. This factoring is a little bit more complicated because we have a extra number in front there, so we have to compensate for that. 2 times 2 doesn't work, but 4 and 1 does if I put them in the right spot. So if I put the 4 opposite of the 3, then it'll work out. So we'll do the little half donut here. So that'd be 1x, and then if we check this out, this would be 12x. Well, 1x and 12x makes 13 if each one of those are negative. Well, if those are negative, then I need to have subtraction right there, equals 0. All right, so that's how it works. If you FOIL this all out, multiply it all out, you get that answer. All right, so then we're going to do zero product proper t. 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. X minus 4 is equal to 0. So we get 4x equals 4. And then we add 1 over. So add 1, add 1. We get 3x is equal to 1. Divide by 3. X is 1/3. So we get 1/3 and 4. So those are the two answers for that. All right, so that's the first page. Second page, solve by completing the square. So for completing the square, I leave a blank space. I call this a preparatory step. So we're going to subtract over the 2. So that means we're going to have a blank space there and a blank space there to fill. We fill it with half the middle term squared. So I do plus 16, plus 16. So then I get x plus 4 times x plus 4 would be how it would factor. So the half the middle term always goes there, and it's x plus 4 is how it would factor, because 4 and 4 multiply to 16, and 4 plus 4 is the 8. And then put those together, that's 14. Then I go through the process that I did on the first page. I got to get rid of the square, so I square root. And I get x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 14. Subtract the 4 over, and I get x is negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 14. So that one works out nice. No imaginary solutions. They're real solutions, so the probably does cross the x-axis. Okay, over here, I'm going to move the 50 over, so I get x squared minus 10x is equal to negative 50. And then here and here. All right, so half the middle term squared to be 25. So I'm going to add 25 to each side. Whoops. Almost made it 5. 25. Sorry. 25. Add 25 to each side. So 25 gets added to each side. Okay. So I got to put that together. So that would be negative 25. So that means when I take the square root, I'm going to get an imaginary solution. And then this factors into x minus 5. So you have to have the negative carry down. And it always factors into half the middle term, which is a negative 5. Then I go back to what I did before, take the square root, and I get x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus from the other page. Square root of 25 is 5 from the first page, but the square root of the negative is the I, so it's 5i. Add the 5 over, and we get x is 5 plus or minus 5i. That's the solution for that one. Okay, the last problems are solving with the quadratic formula. Do you have it memorized or accidentally memorized? Well, here we go. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 1, C is equal to 1. Now, I'm going to change this pen color here to green, because when I do the quadratic formula, I always do the part underneath the square root, the discriminant, as a green. So I got x equals negative b. Well, b is already negative, so it'd be 1 plus or minus the square root over 2a. 2a is just 2. Now I switch to green, and I get b squared, so it'd be negative 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 1. All right, so going back to blue, x equals. So I do it this way because the quadratic formula is a fraction. I'm going to go ahead and write it over here. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, and if you do this enough times, you accidentally memorize it. So the quadratic formula is a fraction. So we have to have the fraction structure. It's a square root because you're undoing a square. It's plus or minus because you need two solutions. So that all that part is in blue, and then the part underneath is the engine of it. It's like what's underneath the hood of the car. So let's see. So it'd be 1 plus or minus the square root over 2. So if I do that out, that would be negative 1 squared is 1 minus 4 times 1 times 1 is 4. So you should get a negative 3 underneath here. So to finish it off, I get x is equal to 1 plus or minus. Square root of the negative is I, so I write I square root of 3 over 2. Ba-boom. Okay, the last one here is just bigger numbers. And notice b is positive this time, so you got to pay attention to that. So A is 2, B is equal to 12, and C is equal to 19. All right. So here we go, negative B. So X is equal to negative 12 plus or minus square root over 2A. 2A would be 4. So, okay, there's the quadratic formula. So I got the negative B, I got the 2A, I got the structure of it. So I know I go green. 12 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is 19. All right. So those are big numbers there. So we get X is equal to negative 12 plus or minus square root over 4. So it's 144. 144. Let's see. 144 is 12 times 12 minus 4 times 2 times 19. Negative 8. That's right. It's negative 8. So the part underneath is negative 8. Pull the I out. And we get X is equal to negative 12 plus or minus I square root of 8 over 4. All right, there it is. And that's the quiz. And hopefully that helps you to understand all the different parts of it.